Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm very excited to share with you my full journey as a collector of physical media. Now this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while now, and it's just kind of been on the back burner for several months actually. Since I started this channel, I kind of made a list of videos of different things I wanted to talk about, and this was on that list, and so I figured I might as well do it now. But my journey as a physical media collector, I didn't just get this whole room overnight. This has been years of collecting, and I kind of just want to share with you how this room got to be the way it is. I feel like, when you're starting off as a collector, it could be very intimidating to see on Facebook, like different Facebook groups or YouTube or whatever, and just see, people with like massive movie collections, and just feel like, okay, I have 10 DVDs, like I'm never going to get to that point. So I'm hoping that this video, in some weird way, could maybe encourage somebody out there that, you can start somewhere small, and if this is your goal, is to have a whole movie room or a movie library like this, that someday you might be able to achieve that. I am very fortunate that I have what I have, and I'm very grateful that I'm able to have the space and the time and energy to put forth, to get this room the way it looks. And so today I just kind of wanted to talk about just kind of where I started as a collector, and then just kind of like walk with you through just some different stages of my collection. Throughout this video, I'm going to be putting in different clips throughout different movie setups that I've had, or just different photos of like different parts of my movie collection. I do want to apologize right up front, because a lot of the photos or the video clips that you will see throughout this whole video are all going to be very low resolution clips that I was shooting all of them on just like a little Sony like Handycam. So definitely the quality is not quite there, but I hope you guys understand the gist of what I'm going for. I am grateful that I was able to take some photos or video clips of my collection in its early stages, and so I can share them with you now. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into my whole story as a physical media collector. So sit back, relax. This probably will be a longer video. I'm not quite sure yet. I have some notes here that I have to talk about different points within the collection. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and I guess I will just jump right in. So to fully understand my movie collection and my love for film, I feel like I kind of have to talk a little bit about my backstory a little bit. I don't want to get into too much detail about my whole backstory, because I know that's not what you're here for. You're here to listen about my whole collection. But at a very young age, I'm not sure when, but I saw the film Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and this was my favorite movie for the longest time. I absolutely loved this movie. This actually encouraged me at a very young age to take things apart and learn how they work, and just kind of build things with my imagination. If you're not familiar, in this film, he makes a shrink ray, I guess, or shrinking machine. I think it's called a shrink ray in the film. But it's kind of like in a similar sense of like Back to the Future with the DeLorean. The shrink ray isn't the main focus of the film. It's just kind of a tool to get the plot where they want it to go. And so, but that was my favorite part of the whole film, was just seeing this guy's laboratory and just everything that he built. So at a very young age, my dad worked as a maintenance manager at a printing company. So he would bring home like these parts to these printing presses and let me take them apart or, build things out of them. And so I don't really remember when all of this was happening, but at a very, very young age, I was building shrink rays in my basement or time machines or whatnot. Just all kinds of weird, cool, crazy inventions that were, going on like in a little boy's imagination. And so I think that translated from my childhood into my love for stories and film. And then along with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I had two other films gifted to me at a very early age. The first one being the movie Toy Story. So this was probably like, I don't even remember. I was very, very young when I got this. And it was actually this exact VHS copy. And so this is something that is a very prized possession within my collection. But then the second one was Superman 2 on VHS. And so this is, again, a very early copy of the film that I got when I was a child. And so I kind of started a very, very, very small movie collection. So that kind of was the first little bit of my collection, those 3 VHS tapes. Then right around the year of 2004, my uncle gifted my family a brand new TV. Now this is back when TVs were still like tube TVs, and it was kind of when DVD was becoming a thing. And this was the first time our family had a DVD player. He took us to Best Buy and he picked out a TV for us, and he told each of us to go ahead and pick out a DVD. And so I think my sister grabbed Finding Nemo, and I picked out the Star Wars trilogy. And so this was the first, I think these were my first DVDs I ever really owned, was the Star Wars trilogy. And then several years later, I ended up getting my very first bedroom. Before that, I was sharing a bedroom with my brother, and so this allowed me to have my very own space. And with that, I was able to kind of like decorate it how I wanted, or, I was really into Legos at the time. And so I had, shelves and shelves of Legos, and I kind of transferred that, the creative side of me of like building all the shrink rays and time machines, and I transferred that into building with Legos and just kind of using my imagination that way. In my closet within my bedroom, it was a basement bedroom where the underneath the steps was my closet. And so I had a couple little shelves against the wall, and on one of those shelves I kind of made it my movie shelf. And so it didn't take very long, but this is kind of right around the time when I was slowly getting into movies. This was right around the summer of 2010. I'm not exactly sure when all of this was, but I mean, it was somewhere in the summer of 2010. With that, I quickly filled up this little shelf. It was only a single shelf of just different DVDs and films that I accumulated from Goodwills or flea markets or, thrift shops or wherever I could find them. Mainly because I had this curiosity with film. I should also mention that at a very young age, I really struggled with reading. I just honestly was just very bad at it. And while everybody else my age was reading books and, hearing stories that way, I had this like craving for stories. And I think then that's when I turned to films to do that. And I think I loved the idea, just like in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, how pretty much anything was possible. Anything that my imagination could think of was possible within a film. And so I think that's where my love for movies came from. And so I wanted to see as many movies as I possibly could. And so I was buying up as like DVDs and VHS tapes, and I had the goal of getting all the James Bond films, and then I had the goal of, getting this little collection or that or whatever. And so I kept buying up films until I filled up my little shelf within my closet. And then my parents ended up getting me this bookcase. I've carried this bookcase around so many different places, and yeah, I still have it to this day. So this is a, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 shelf bookcase. It's nothing too crazy. I think they got it at like Big Lots or something like that, or Walmart. And within this bookcase, I think it was like my little movie collection that I did have filled up just the first shelf. Maybe a little bit on the second shelf. But as you'll see here, I'll insert a clip of what I had at that point. But you can see I did not have a lot. It's also the way that I had it laid out. I had the alphabet going in backwards order. I think it's because when you would walk into my closet shelf thing, it was on the right hand side. Right along the side, you would see, A, B, C, D, E, F, and it would kind of go all the way to the back of the closet, if that makes sense. That's why it's in backwards alphabet order. I eventually obviously fixed that, but so this was my first movie shelf ever, and I absolutely loved it. I was trying so hard to fill it. I remember getting very excited when I finally did fill it. So if you could imagine, all the movies that I ever owned fit on this one shelf. And when I did fill up that one shelf, I eventually convinced my parents to buy me a taller bookcase. Now, those are like the ones that you would see at Walmart today. I'll insert a photo here if I have one. It was a big transition to get that one bookcase, and I eventually filled that up as well. And I was really just mainly buying movies from, there was like a local thrift shop where I grew up. There was Goodwill. I'd go to a couple different like consignment shops and stuff like that. Very, very rarely would I buy anything online. I think there was maybe once or twice I got, a couple, like one package from Best Buy or something like that, or Cyber Monday deals from Amazon or whatnot. But I would mainly be getting movies from when I would come across them in a store. But eventually I filled up that bookcase as well, and I just kept getting movies. I think I loved the idea of just hearing all these different stories. And of course, just like any other collection, once you kind of start realizing how far it really goes, I think you start realizing that there is a lot more out there than what you would have originally thought. As I mentioned earlier, I was really into Legos, and so I had some shelves that were mounted on the walls, and so I eventually started putting VHS tapes on those. And again, I'll throw up a photo if I have some. But I eventually would put up movies on the wall, and eventually I was I filled up my larger bookcase, this bookcase, and movies on my shelves that were on the wall. So somewhere in the year of 2014 or 2015, I went ahead and built my first shelf, and that is the shelf that you see behind me. I know I've talked about this briefly before, but this was a pretty big deal for me. It was to build this shelf, and originally I think I might be able to find an early photo of everything that fit on here, and you'll see my entire collection of movies fit on the shelf with no problem, with room to grow. And that's exactly what I wanted. I had to go with this specific height of these shelves due to that my bedroom was underneath a sunken living room, and so it wasn't like a proper basement ceiling height. The room above mine was a sunken living room, so whenever you would step into it, it was about a foot drop, and so the ceiling to my room was fairly low. So I had to kind of go with the parameters that I had within the bedroom, which I guess will be a running theme with all of the other shelves that I built, is I had to kind of customize them to the shape of the room at the time. So late 2015, so this would have been winter of 2015, I got a job at Buybacks. Now, Buybacks is no longer in business, but they were a movie store. They would, similar to like a Half Price Books or like an Exchange, or kind of similar to even the Retro Attic that I've talked about on this channel before, where essentially just a used movie store. They didn't sell anything else besides movies and video games and CDs. I guess I should add that. But no vinyl or nothing quite like that. But when I worked there, I got a very, very good discount. I don't really exactly remember what the discount was. I think it was like the cost of the item to the store plus like 2% or something. So, it was very, very cheap. And with that, it pretty much exposed me to a lot more movies, including, this is right around the time when I learned what the Criterion Collection was. But prior to 2015, I had no idea what the Criterion Collection was. I didn't even know what a boutique label was. I just thought there were DVDs and Blu-rays. I remember even getting my very first Blu-ray, and I was very excited, which was Total Recall, I believe. Yeah, Total Recall was my very first Blu-ray, and but being at buybacks, I was actually able to talk with other movie people, talk with customers, and just get more of a knowledge of what film was. And so I learned what the Criterion Collection was, which pretty much changed my whole perspective of film. And so right around that time is kind of when I started buying up Criterion. Some of my very first Criterion titles that I ever owned, I believe this was actually the first one I got, was Spy Number 1, and that was Grand Illusion. So it was a very interesting job in that regards, where I was able to just learn a lot. And along with that, my movie collection grew dramatically. At this point, it was this movie wall, the taller bookcase, this smaller bookcase, and I had 6 shelves on the wall mounted that were just full of VHS and whatever else. I also, at that point, I had one tall bookcase dedicated to stuff I have never seen. This was the only time ever in my entire collection where I had one shelf dedicated to everything that I've never seen before. And that was at the time, I thought it was a good idea. And I know some people might do that now, but for me, it got very overwhelming. Especially when I would be buying up a lot of stuff. I had to separate. I was like, okay, I've seen this, I haven't seen this, or this whole stack of stuff I haven't seen. I have to find room on this shelf. And soon things were, piling up, and there are movies behind other movies, and I wasn't even sure what I had at that point. And it was a lot. And so it was also VHS mixed in with DVDs, mixed in with Laserdiscs, and just a lot to deal with. And so I decided to basically put everything that I had in that one spot and just kind of mix it in within my entire collection, which took a very long time. And so about a year later, in 2016, me and a couple friends decided to get an apartment together. And so I had my own room there, and I basically put all my movies in one bedroom, which they were at my parents' house, but this one felt, I think it was a smaller room, and so I essentially, I was stacking movies wherever I could. Now, I also will say that I was still getting a discount at buybacks. Even though, unfortunately, prior to the apartment, I actually lost my job at buybacks because my particular store closed. And so I had to find a different job. But there was one other branch that, unfortunately, at the time was not hiring. But there was one other branch that essentially I was still getting a discount for because my manager transferred over there. So while I was living at this apartment, I still had this shelf that's behind me. I got 2 larger bookcases and this bookcase, but my collection grew very, very fast to the point that I was basically putting all of the VHS tapes that I had on another format in boxes in the basement and just getting them out of my room and, trying to make up room for everything else. My Criterion collection, this is the point where I separated my Criterion collection from the rest of my movies. Prior to this, I kind of kept all my Criterion within my regular alphabetical. I also think this was the first time that then I separated out my horror movies from my regular movies. And so a few key changes that have carried over to now. And so about a year later, I decided to move out from my living with my friends and move back home. Now, in between me living with my parents decided to move houses, and so I moved into a different room where this was more of like their whole basement was essentially my room. And so when I moved back in with my parents, I'll throw up some photos of what that room looked like. But I kind of had, all of the different furniture pieces that I accumulated while living in an apartment, like a couch or a coffee table or, things that I would not have had at my parents' house the first time. But I had that mixed in with, just a TV, stuff that I also accumulated and, just different things that I got. And so I ended up building more shelves for that room. And that honestly, that was a really interesting time for my collection because it just kept growing pretty fast. And I kept building shelves and had to change different aspects of it. I came across at that point too, I think it was 1,200 VHS tapes for 20 bucks, which made everything more difficult because it was a lot to try to fit into a already pretty packed area. And eventually, I think I was there for a few years, but eventually I decided to get my own apartment without any roommates. And so I got it was a 2-bedroom apartment. And so this was the first time that I had a specific room dedicated to movies. Because always before this, it was always like a bedroom slash office slash theater, or, you know, like a bedroom slash office slash movie room or whatever. Like it was always pretty much every aspect of my life crammed into one. And, but this was the first time that I dedicated, is actually the larger of the 2 bedrooms, to movies. And I'll put up some more photos and video clips here. But you can kind of see that, like, it was a lot. Pretty much every square inch of that bedroom I packed with films. I actually had to cut up a couple of my shelves because the like ground level was about here on me. So the actual apartment sat half underground and then half above ground because there was another unit on top of what I was on, or it was above me, I guess. And so I had like a window right where I didn't want it to be, but I had to kind of make do with what I had. And at this point, I will say that my collection like exploded. You know, I would just keep buying up things, and I kept finding great deals on Facebook. And you know, at this point, I was working a decently paying job, I guess, and my expenses were fairly low. And I was fortunate enough just to be able to, you know, buy a lot of different items. This was definitely the first time that I will say that this is like when my Criterion collection really took off. Is during this period of time where I would really just trying to get quantity over quality. There was still a lot of stuff in my collection that was not quality, but I definitely was, I don't know, I had a lot of fun with that first movie room of mine. And it was definitely overwhelming to be in, and it was hard to even just like find stuff to watch. And I will say that this was also right during quarantine. So this was during 2020. And so, you know, it was fun just to kind of sit on the couch all day and just watch movies and not feel bad about it. But soon after that, I ended up getting engaged and getting married. And so my wife, she had to, you know, move in. And so I changed the entire apartment round before she moved in. So this was just step 1 of the entire apartment rearranging process. I have to get basically both of these in there before I can start moving the bookcases in there and start filling them up with VHS tapes. It is going to be a lot. The shelving over here, all that has to go into the living room. And this one and that one have to go into the living room as well. I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to put this yet, so now we step into my kitchen, and as you already see, there's bookcases here and here. Yeah, it is movies on my love seat, movies on my couch, VHS tapes just everywhere right now. I decided to, you know, split up my whole collection. So I put a shelf in the living room. I put more than one shelf in the living room, as you'll see photos here. I put a couple shelves in the living room, and then I used the smaller of the 2 bedrooms as a home office slash movie room. So I basically just made it a very, very tiny version of what it was. And I honestly liked it a lot better because in the living room I kind of had this area of movies that I really just enjoyed, and just films that I felt were like the quality, like the best parts of my collection. Of course, that included like Criterion, and I had my whole like horror wall, and I had laser discs in there and stuff, and it was great. And then we were fortunate enough to get to the house that we are currently in. And so pretty much my entire movie collection, and I think I hit 10,000 movies when I was living at that apartment. I think that's when I broke 10,000. And so when I was living there, I had to box up everything, obviously to move, and which was a very fun time. I will say that throughout all the different houses and apartments that I've lived in, it was always harder every time because I would always accumulate more and more movies. And so I boxed up all 10,000 movies and brought them here. Now, originally when we bought this house, the room that I'm standing in did not exist. This was pretty much just like one giant room, which I'll throw up some photos as well, which eventually I will do a video on kind of like the process of building this room. But for now, you'll just kind of get a glimpse of that. But this whole room was not here. And so April of 2022, I started construction on this room. Meanwhile, my entire movie collection sat in boxes in the living room, which took up more than half of the living room, and it was very inconvenient. It was driving me crazy. Mainly because I was buying up movies here and there when when my whole collection was in boxes, and I would be essentially buying up little bits and pieces here and there, and then I would just put those in more boxes and just throw it with the rest of them. And so it was driving me crazy that there were, things out of order and whatnot. In April of 2022, I built this room, or I should say I started building this room, and that took a few months to complete. But when it was done, I was so excited because I was able to finally put up all my shelving, put up, organize things how I wanted. And you can see from my, I think it was my first room tour video that I did, a lot of things have changed in this room. And that kind of brings us to now. I've been doing a YouTube channel now for a little over a year, and you can kind of see that how my collection has changed, hopefully, throughout those videos, especially if you watch my first room tour video then versus my last one that I did. But hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of my movie collecting story. So if you have questions, please, please, please leave them in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. And I will say that it was just like, I don't know, I feel like the movie collecting is just like an extension of who I am as a creator. And like I mentioned earlier, of just the possibilities of using your imagination to create anything, and just how Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was able to, basically shrink people down, and I loved that. And so I think that's between my being horrible at reading and the love for creating things and just using my imagination, I think those two elements combined into just a love for stories. Those kind of combined into who I am now as a person. And my ultimate dream is to make films. Currently, I am self-employed doing wedding photography and videography, and so I love it. I absolutely love telling stories, and so hopefully that kind of gives you a glimpse of who I am as a person, why I love movies, and just, I don't know, I love everything about them. I think, film is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful way to communicate with stories. I think it's such a interesting thing that it's such an interesting art form that we've made as humans. But I think that will do it. Again, if you have any questions, hopefully I covered everything. It's hard for me to remember everything in the past, especially at the early stages. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.